when Tiffany Haddish belted out, "You know who my mama is?" I almost threw my remote control at the screen, y'all. What's up, YouTube fam? It's Jeray Malay, the girl from around the way, where we have culture, conversation, and community. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing Self-Made, inspired by the life of Madam C.J. Walker. This movie came out on Netflix. It was also inspired by a book that was written by her daughter on her own ground. So everybody's at home because of the Rona. You know, she out here in the streets, and this Rona got us on lockdown. So like y'all, I'm sure I watched the Madam C.J. Walker movie on Netflix. And when it's all said and done, it was a cute bop, but there were some definite mishaps in regards to representation in Black people and just the story in general. But I'm gonna say that for last. You know what I mean? We're gonna start with the positives. We're going to start off with the good, okay? Because I'm going to circle back for Tiffany Haddish. Oh, I'm going to circle back for her. The movie really starts off with how she even, like, lost her hair. It really didn't get into, like, the nooks and crannies, but she just had, like, patches everywhere on her hair, and her hair was falling out. She couldn't stop it. She was really feeling bad about herself because she looked a mess. And, like, I think that was really nice that they touched on that, because a lot of women in that post Civil War era, like the first generation of freed slaves or children of slaves who were born free, didn't really know how to take care of their hair. Definitely even the slaves then, because they didn't have time to get up and let me do something to my hair. So a lot of the women had ringworms in their scalp and bugs and patches, and that's why they just kept it covered or kept it in a wrap. Not because it was a fashion statement, but because they literally had no time to care for their hair. And even if they weren't slaves, they were still working as field hands, meaning like they were doing hard laborious work. So if I'm getting up working in the field today, I'm not about to go wash my hair. And then washing, that's another thing, they didn't have indoor plumbing, so how could you wash your hair and maintain that? So a lot of women, I'm imagining, struggled with the maintenance and the cleanliness of their hair, which resulted in hair loss. I want to say, like, at first the music in the film was a bit futuristic. Like when they first went into the clips and they were playing like music, I'm like, this doesn't really fit the era. But as I continued watching, I felt like it was a good fit, because it kind of made an older story feel new and fresh and still relatable today. So the soundtrack was on point, and like, I am one of those girls who like need to have the mood right, the music right. It just makes like a nice event or a nice movie or a nice anything like that much better when the music fits. And I felt like, you know, they did a good job with the soundtrack. Another thing worth mentioning also is that they started off with her trying to sell Addie Monroe's products, but she didn't want her because she didn't have the look, stereotypical mulatto look. And she basically took the product, sold them anyway, and that kind of caused a rift in the movie from here on out. However, I do want to go ahead and say that Maddie Monroe, whose real name was Annie Malone, and she wasn't a light-skinned mulatto mixed woman. She was born to two African slaves in like Illinois or something like that. So they definitely sensationalized this whole light skin, dark skin type of rhetoric, which, you know, it's what sells, it's what sensationalizes, what people like to hear. We saw that all throughout the movie. Like, Madam C.J. Walker would just get thrown by the fact of just that woman's presence being there, by her being a lighter skinned, more favorable or more desirable looking woman than she was. And let me just say something to y'all Black girls, like, let go of that rhetoric, okay? Let go of that way of thinking. Don't even let that sneak into your subconscious mind. If you already feel that way, girl, do some work. And if you feel that way, make sure you join my private Facebook group, where I post motivational things, accountability things. It's a way for me to connect with you all. But listen, I understand colorism, and I understand the systemic roots that it has. However, I didn't like the fact that it was just she was overtaken by it, okay? And we know that historically, when you have lighter skin, you're more favorable, even in jobs, even in work, even like there's some truth to that. There definitely is some truth to that. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, it doesn't exist, colorism doesn't exist. Girl, it exists for real in everyday life. However, that was like a driving factor in everything that she was doing. And I don't feel like, or I don't want to believe that it was to that degree, because that woman wasn't even, the actual real woman wasn't light skinned. So where are they getting that from? They just are playing on knowing that colorism is a huge deal. And you know, it just could have been done better. They could have talked about that, but they mishandled it. And I really feel like they just sensationalized it. They capitalized off of the idea that people like watching things, and people like seeing two black women, lighter skin, darker skin black women, be pitted against one another, when we are so much more powerful than that. There was also themes talking about how your hair is, you know, going to afford you better opportunities. And like, I will say, like, as a black woman in 2020, I get different looks when I change different hairstyles all the time, especially from my own people, which is something that I addressed in my video that I just posted about starting my lock journey. But like, it's a real thing, girl. Like, and leave a comment down below. Do you notice a difference in if you wear like your natural hair, or if you wear like an afro, or if you wear like bundles 22 inches? Because I do. Like, people really have a perception of you, and all of it is rooted in European beauty standards. So, you know, that's something that still rings true today. I like that they showed her reading the book The Negro in Business. Madam C.J. Walker was really just ahead of her time. She only had 3 years of formal education, which she got from Sunday school. But you saw her, there were images of her actually just reading and trying to educate herself. And that is so important if you are on an entrepreneurial journey. They were clothed well, they spoke well. I mean, some of them, we're gonna get into that. But I mean, like, the imagery was so good and so beautiful to see black people in a different light, because we were successful. We saw black investors, black business owners, and everything like this during the Reconstruction era. There were so many black people who were wealthy, oftentimes wealthier than white counterparts, so much so that it made white Americans angry. And we had situations like the Tulsa bombing, or really like the Tulsa massacre and things of that nature, because they just couldn't handle to see us winning. Go figure. We saw Madam C.J. Walker's business antics. Like, I want them to leave with something, which is a great practice to do. Like I said, if you were on an entrepreneurial journey, like, sometimes you have to give something and give a little bit to get a little bit. That's something that I've learned. It really just outlined how creative, how dedicated, how you have to work in your faith when you are on an entrepreneurial journey. It was such a good image to see. Like, all in all, they did a really good job with this movie. Cassie Lemons, who was the director of one of my all-time favorites, Eve's Bayou, and I think she also did Harriet too. A lot of people don't know this either, but LeBron James was an executive producer on this project as well. So, you know, this was a really good win for the black community, the imagery in a nutshell. One of the things that it highlighted also was a patriarchy that was going on during that time, which is something that I really don't think about often, because when you're considering like black people in that era, it's really just about the white people that they were up against, and you know, like that whole thing. But you don't really think about how women were even more marginalized by being black, and then also a woman, because there were instances when, well, actually a few instances and within the movie where she had to go to her husband because she wouldn't even get a meeting. There's quite a few people who feel like she was emasculating him at some points, but I really don't feel like that was what was taking place. I think she was frustrated, and I think she was somewhat of a smothered voice trying to be heard. And it's like, it's not like she was just like, she was bringing in profits, okay? When she passed away, she was worth $8 million. I don't know how much that is in today's world. Damn. She passed away in 1919, and she was worth $8 million. $8 million in that era compared to now would be $100 million, okay? Actually, what was it? $120 million. So sis was about a coin. And it doesn't matter that you have a penis in between your legs, doesn't mean that you can you should be the one who is able to determine how things should go for me, especially if I have the ideas and I have the things. And she gave him opportunities to make money. She was empowering him as well. I think they showed a really good balance of their relationship in the beginning, not until his fragile masculinity got into the way and he decided to go step outside of the marriage because she makes me feel like a woman. You know what I mean? So whatever. But I also think that the black men back in those eras, I really feel like it was expected for them to have fragile masculinity, much like it was probably fragile femininity going on, since we were just a generation out of slavery. So they weren't considered a man. Even still, like even back then, they would still be called a boy even if that man was 75 years old. So I'm sure that masculinity thing was something that was a huge obstacle for women back in those days, and since frankly it's still an issue today with regular deglars. Okay, one of the most interesting things that I also found in this movie that I love that they included was, one, the black flight. A lot of people were moving from the south to the north after the Reconstruction periods. A lot of states were offering homes at a discounted rate. They were encouraging people to get up out the south and here, come to my good old town in Utah or Colorado and escape the south. That was a really good point, historical point. Another good point I also want to mention is the fact that they highlighted the fight between Jack Johnson and the Great White Hope. That kind of thing still circulates today. We see that with the Fury fight. You know, they wanted the black guy to lose because, you know, the white man represents the Great White Hope and the black is evil and devil and whatever. Jack Johnson was one of the first black men millionaires to ever become the heavyweight champion of the world, and he was black. So everything back then were being done with the idea of, we want them to see us. If one makes it, we all make it. Okay, come on. I really think that they included that because the Jack Johnson fight, or he became the heavyweight champion, kind of set the tone for the era. You know, it kind of gave a lot of black people more hope, like this is what we were going into. And they did Jack Johnson so terrible. I don't even want to get into that because this video gonna be a 30-minute video if I even start talking about that. But it was mentioned that in the film that it caused riots after the fight. 26 black people were killed just because the black man won. You know, just think about the amount of rage and anger during those time periods, and then to be able to turn around and flourish in that, and somebody, your neighbor, they don't even know these Jack Johnson, this white guy can just come up to you and just kill you just based on the fact that a black man won. Girl, it's sickening. And you know, there were some issues with, you know, Addie Monroe following her, which there was some fabrication going on. They used the church for the business, obviously. CJ Walker was insecure that she would steal her customers because all of my customers want to look like me, even if they know that they'll never be able to look like me. That was my southern accent. So, you know, there was that issue, and I really just feel like the whole light skin, dark skin thing was just exasperated. Honestly, it truly was. So unfortunate that it kind of leaves a stain on Annie's legacy, because she was a very, very successful black entrepreneur who she should be honored and pay homage to as well. Why are we vilifying her? You know, I thought it was interesting that they made the lighter skinned woman the villain of the movie pretty much, but they still held her to this higher regard. We've seen that with the whole the Walker woman instance, when the husband said, this is the woman who we want to create a brand around, kind of like the image of Aunt Jemima or whatever. But this woman who looks nothing like his wife is who he wanted to use because he knew that that's what would sell. But why do we still feel that way? Like, even in 2020, people feel like my products will sell if I have a lighter skin or an ethnically ambiguous person. But I really feel like it was overdone. All in all, what a great film. Good imagery. The music was so good. I love the fact that it was set in the old times, but it was up-to-date music, because it will allow the younger generations to really be interested into learning about this character versus, you know, swing low, sweet child, like, you know what I mean? No shade, no tea, no offense to that, because listen, I'm over here honoring my ancestors, trust and believe. But, you know, it gets old. The imagery is old. Since we want to see something new and fresh, okay? And by new and fresh, we don't mean Tiffany Haddish. Tiffany Haddish plays the stereotypical coon-esque type of chick. Now, she was, you know, portrayed as a lesbian woman, or, you know, a part of the LGBTQ community, which that really doesn't get discussed as much, which we know, gay people have been around since the beginning of time, okay? So they really are kind of missing in history. But when she opened her mouth and said, you know who my mama is, when they were in a restaurant and she was meeting E.D. DeBron, the whole thing is the daughter was supposed to be college educated. Is that really how she was speaking? I honestly, truly hated the way that Tiffany Haddish came that character to life. A lot of people say Tiffany doesn't act, she just shows up as herself, or she tries to be a stereotypical slapstick type of funny. And we all need comedy relief in certain situations in certain movies and stuff like that, but she was just misplaced. It was not a good fit, and I just don't understand for the life of me. I don't like her. I'm rooting for her. I'm rooting for anybody, but like, trust me, and I've tried it. I say, what, her brand of comedy, it just isn't for me. But in this movie, Tiffany, you ain't have to do her like that. You did not have to do it like that. I feel like she's that black girl that the white people can laugh at if they do so happen to watch the movie and tune in. I just did not like her character. Just coonish, even when it didn't even call for. Unnecessarily coonish. For what? Okay, you know who my mama is. Now, granted, I'm not going against anybody who, was not educated and didn't speak grammatically correct, because I don't always, okay? We all can bring up our little English skills up a little bit, but you know who my mama is, for real. At that moment, I knew. I was like, yeah, I just don't. Then she brought in her raggedy old husband, girl. I got a couple of Johns holding on to y'all. I need to let him go because he was just as terrible as trifling. I'm not going to get into it because it's going to be super long. But it was really, really good, worth mentioning, worth looking into. I do want to say I watched a really, really good movie. It's called The Banker on Apple TV with Samuel L. Jackson and Nia Long. Man, that was such a good depiction of a black hero, a black unsung hero. I had no idea who this man was. If y'all could check that out, that's a really good, strong, it has really good, strong images for black people in that film, man. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button. If anything I said resonates with you, I greatly appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to my channel, guys. Hit the subscribe button and join the family. Let YouTube know it's for real. If you haven't already, check out my my private Facebook group, okay? Because I wanted to get real over there, in the description box below. And as always, I'm sending you much love and much light, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, peace. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. You might as well go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Let YouTube know it's real, okay? All right, for real, I'm leaving this time, but for real, don't forget to hit subscribe, okay? Okay, all right, you got it. All right, you got it. Okay.